Joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the social media pages, including Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the YouTube channel, Talk El Paso, Twitter @Talk El Paso, or Twitch @Andrew J. Polk. So the names of the show in a variety of ways. Find it one way or the other, and you will get us there. So find us there, talk with us there, leave your comments throughout the show, and let's talk El Paso, because that's our mission. That's what we do. That's what we like to do here daily anyway, and we got a lot to get to here today. Bunch of big currents happening either pretty immediately or just over the weekend, including let's just call it the two big ones, at least forefront of my mind anyway. There's a lot going on out there, but affecting us here in the borderland. We did have that big national piece of legislation go through, the physical infrastructure bill, still totaling, give or take $1 trillion. You a billion here, a billion there. Start talking real money now, don't you? And as well as a potential revisiting of one of the more contentious city council issues to come up recently. So let's call it the tale of two government issues coming up or being revisited in certain ways, specifically from city council. They're revisiting that whole arena cost estimate situation, but there's more. It may be more involved in it than it appears to be at the eye. At least some local advocates are calling it as such. So those are some of the big things in my mind here today. So to dive right into those, of course, we did have that, again, roughly $1 trillion bill. Again, just, some chump change for compared to what we've been talking about lately, right? Big amount of money. So this was more specifically the physical infrastructure bill that came up out of, that's been going through after finally getting through. I honestly had lost track of exactly where the holdup was, but as has been said a moment, it's kind of a do or die situation for National Democrats, because if they can't prove that even with more or less control of all of the houses and the White House, so the two main branches of government that enact legislation and then put it into place, if they can't get that through, what exactly are they going to be doing? As John Brazelton is joining us over on the Facebook page and letting us know that is excellent audio today. Appreciate the feedback there. Always good to know. But, I mean, you can always tune in a variety of ways. We just like to know that some of the ways we're putting it out sound good, because we are primarily an audio medium, but also thank you for tuning in that way. Again, leave your comments over there. So the whole holdup, to my understanding, had been over the kerfuffle and the pleasing of different aspects. So as it goes for signature, finally, looking at the initial real big push coming out of this administration that wasn't basically continuations of previous administrations' efforts like coronavirus response bill, relief bills, et cetera, this being the first real kind of signature thing. And now the question is, A, are they going to try to still push through with the trillions more human infrastructure, I think is the best way it's been described for. So the one that just came through proposes funding for things like roads, bridges, I think some telecommunications is included in there, and there's a lot of smaller provisions in there that have been getting picked apart and really focused on. Do not get me wrong, as we also have Calvin Williams joining us over on the Facebook page. I mean, there's a lot into it, and the whole, I don't even think I saw the final estimate of what the actual size of this bill was. As much as I like the idea, I don't think that any of the read the bill acts are ever actually going to go through because, well, among other things, this one would probably have taken several days just to read it all. And again, the Byzantine nature of how legislation is actually written. I don't know if you've ever actually read like a major bill like this, one that then references and changes section. Like it takes several degrees just to be able to get through the language itself, much less be able to figure out what it is. There's a reason they have huge staffs that are basically the ones handling this and have to have their own continuing education credits and being able to keep up with this kind of stuff. Separate issue, but that's why, as much as I like the idea of it, I'm not going to hold my breath that it's ever actually going to pass those read the bill acts, because, well, they would be incomprehensible at best and tick people more off than not at worst. So I'm not going to, I'd love to see it happen. I don't think it's going to, but particularly with a complicated bill that deals with a whole bunch of different things like this, as we also have Leroy Chuck joining us over on the Facebook page. Good afternoon to you as well. John Browslin commenting on that, also saying that Democrats in Congress and at the White House only know how to spend money. Your grandchildren will pay the piper. I mean, that is definitely a thing, and particularly when it comes to other such issues coming up, like Social Security, which isn't even touched on this, but that's a whole nother show here point being, with this current issue and what's going on with it, they managed to pass something. It has been pared down. I mean, this one was originally supposed to be like $1.5 trillion, if I'm remembering correctly. A lot more than it was, and then it got pared down, and they got pared down again, and then it got split because they were together with the whole human infrastructure bill part of it. So that one is still more or less stalled because of the concerns that come from, and just by talking on this show, I have been getting some strange mistargeted ads toward me because the holdouts, when it comes particularly to the human infrastructure side of it, the other part of the multi-trillions that we're talking about here, is held up by primarily two. Joe Manchin, West Virginia senator there, gets talked about quite a bit, but also Kristen Sinema from Arizona comes up, and in just a real fluke of close but no cigar kind of targeted advertising, I've started getting her ads from her campaign about that she's a strong independent fighting for you regardless of party in Congress. I mean, love the enthusiasm. Literally can't vote for you or even your opponents in this case because I am not in your jurisdiction, but apparently we talk about these issues enough that the internet powers that be have decided that I definitely need to be hearing about the campaign policies and promises of Kyrsten Sinema. So we might break down that a little bit more because, hey, we've got midterms coming up. Yeah, all of this. I mean, this is why it finally happened, I think, for the Democrats, that they finally got their ducks in a row. Because if this level of dysfunction was going to go on, they weren't even going to have a hope at the ballot box. Whether they still do now, certainly up for debate, given, the road to this point, certainly here. So that's some of what's going on. And, of course, the impacts coming here, cross-border trade, some of our local infrastructure, that's going to be a lot more trickle down, I think is going to be a best phrase to use it right there in the coming weeks and months as we figure out what the heck is actually going to be going on from that bill. But we got to take a break right now. Coming back from the break, we'll talk about that other issue coming up specifically out of City Council with a major local, arguably, infrastructure project. And it's coming back on the ballot, but, well, not the ballot, but to discussion. See what happens this time. More after this break with Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. It has been a busy weekend. I don't know if you or me. I was out at the UTEP game, had a great time, leading to maybe a little bit of a sluggish Monday start for me, and something I turn to, have a big glass, because I finally just broke down and I'm getting a big order for myself, is that of Clever Tea, KLEVRT. If you haven't heard me talk about it before, it's a locally produced tea with increasing capacity in our local area and more flavors coming on the way. But right now, their main offering is their Oolong Wise blend, which is a delicious blend of oolong tea, coconut, pineapple, hibiscus, eucalyptus, hawthorn berry, and cinnamon. And if you get it pre-made like I do, you can get it with just the right amount of monk fruit in it so that it keeps you on track with whatever your goals are, because that's 0 calories plus the benefits that come with it, including boosting energy levels, reducing anxiety, and promoting better focus. That's all stuff I need in just doing this kind of programming. But if you need it in your own life, you can find them online at clevertea.com. Also often out in the community and the weekends. But if you want to place your own order, when you're checking out, hit the code radio15, enter that with your checkout to get your own discount on your next order in boxes, or find out in the community in bottles as well, or all the information about them online at clevertea.com. That's KLEVRTEA.com.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch out for an accident on Wrestler Drive northbound at Helen of Troy. Also, there's a medical emergency on Americas Avenue at Zaragoza. And there's another medical emergency that could cause some delays on Rojas Drive westbound at Zaragoza. You could try using Pelicano and George Heater Drive to get by. I'm Marie Jourdain, and that's traffic.
This report is sponsored by Panera. Panera believes in saying yes to the good things. Yes to mac and cheese. Yes to topping it with cheesy Parmesan crisps. And yes to putting it all on a sandwich. The new grilled mac and cheese sandwich. Get $1 delivery when you order on the app. Panera. Live your yes. Restrictions apply.
In the 90s, Bruce Willis couldn't avoid the spotlight until he discovered a tiny mountain town. On the podcast Haleywood, discover what happened when Hollywood glamour collided with the small-town values of Haley, Idaho.
It's a tale people close to Bruce Willis have never been keen on telling, but it's a story the people of Haley are recounting in detail for the very first time.
Listen to Haleywood, that's Hailey, on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. Brought to you by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy online for free with DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo.
Hey folks, this is Andrew J. Polk. I'm all about local, and El Paso-based Clever Tea is changing how to stay refreshed and focused in the borderland and beyond with a masterfully crafted blend of hand-picked oolong tea infused with crisp pineapple, creamy coconut, and more in every sip with just the right amount of sweetness. Find it in boxes and bottles at the Brown Street Market, CBD Vita, Upper Valley Mercantile, House of Hoops, and Muscle Confusion Gym, and Cooking Time. Or order online and find special discounts at clevertea.com. That's KLEVRT.com.
Hi, this is Rick from the Air Conditioning Company. The cold air is coming, so now's the time to get your furnace working right. If your unit's more than 20 years old, it's inefficient and doesn't have the new safety devices. The new furnaces are more efficient and pay for themselves. Act now and get the best prices of the year and save up to 25%. Our expert techs can put money back in your pocket. Call 842-8615 today or log on to airconditioningcompanyllc.com. The Air Conditioning Company. You'll love our company. License number 26622E.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day.
I don't watch television, so I get all my news from you.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
I am a veteran. I spent 2 years alone and homeless.
As America's veterans face challenges, DAV is there.
My victory was finding the support to get back on my feet.
DAV helps veterans of every generation get the benefits they've earned.
I'm a veteran. When I got out, I felt like nowhere was safe.
So veterans can reach victories, great and small.
My victory was finding the help I needed. Thanks to DAV, now I feel like I'm human again.
Support more victories for veterans. Go to DAV.org.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Whatever you're doing and going about your day, something to keep in your back pocket, a little bit of peace of mind and security, knowing that whatever happens in your day, particularly those day disruptors, those unexpected minor medical emergencies that leave you wondering what to do if you can muddle through your day, don't wonder anymore, because you know you can go to Upper Valley Urgent Care Center at 121 East Red Road to have your treatment for whatever the day throws at you, those aches, breaks, sprains, bruises, other injuries, or those sniffles, coughs, the things that are just making it so that whatever was on your schedule is now out the window, because they're available on your schedule, because these things don't show up on the calendar. So they're available 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., walk-in basis, no appointment needed, with fast and friendly 5-star medical treatment. Dr. Carpenter and his team over there at Upper Valley Urgent Care Center have 20 exam rooms to take care of you and your family. It's who I go to when we find ourselves in those kind of situations. They're also VA authorized urgent care providers, so a lot of capabilities and a lot of ways to keep your peace of mind going. Upper Valley Urgent Care Center.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of stuff we're talking about here today, and a lot of ways you can interact with the show. Of course, we have got the social media pages, including facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Twitter page at Talk El Paso, YouTube, the Talk El Paso channel, and Twitch even, because why not? Getting out there in a lot of different ways, because you never know what the next lack of capability on part of these social media pages will always be on air as long as the power is going there. And even if the power isn't off, we got emergency backup. So on air audience, don't worry, we're not going anywhere. But these are some of the expanding ways that you can get with us and get a hold of us. John Brazel to bring up another important point about the border crossings now open for those that are vaccinated and provable to it. That being the kind of specific secondary part of it. Some of the FAQs coming out from CBP and the local offices and infrastructure there. A lot of interesting situations. Haven't seen necessarily too much of, well, craziness going on there, but a lot of local businesses seeming to be happy. John saying that he is concerned about vehicle theft related to it. Yeah, I've had some cousins in the past that had to deal with that. Never happened to myself currently, anyway. Knock on wood, somewhere around here. Plywood, anyway. But there will see some changing situations here. So, I mean, there were some backups that I saw, but at other times people are surprised that no one else was crossing. Almost wonder if it was a situation of everyone was expecting everyone to go, so no one ended up going except for a couple. We'll see how it works out in the coming weeks and months. I'm sure that a lot of local businesses will be happy for the holiday shopping season and whole Black Friday concept there, of the idea of being in the black for the first time of the year. Probably more important than ever for a lot of local businesses there. So, I mean, forewarn, forearm, take the precautions you feel necessary in your day, because situations are continuing to change here. But that other one that I wanted to mention, besides what we see from the impacts of that, is that item that is coming back up now on the city council agenda, specifically that of a reconsideration of what might be happening with the costs for the downtown arena. So, specifically, it's on the agenda that there was an item co-sponsored by Isabel Salcido, Hernandez, and Rivera to be talked about today, reading as it quotes, discussion and action on the development of cost estimates for the Multipurpose Performing Arts and Entertainment Center, also known as the MPC, also more commonly known as the arena, my emphasis there. Continuing with the quote here, to be located in downtown, and to direct the city manager or designee to hire a consultant and execute all contracts and amendments to develop the following information: a project concept, partnership, opportunity guidelines involving public-private partnership, specifications, and financial model to include estimate of capital costs and operating costs, of which is in compliance with all court rulings and legal decisions, which is a long way to say they're revisiting that whole item about what will the arena's costs truly be. But as has been noted out by both commentators on it and by over at El Paso Inc., specifically saying that this is coming from the other side, the way they are talking about that this past weekend here, given that the previous one was put forth by Claudia Rodriguez, previously City Rep Claudia Rodriguez, saying that there was also the included edition at that point in time of it being either an in-house estimate or hiring a consultant here. The somewhat reasonable criticism that came about it, saying that, well, why are we going to spend money on a consultant if we still have these cases going forth, which then does baffle me a little bit with the current language of how this is moving forward, saying, okay, so now we're looking at it from the other side. The people who voted it down or actually voted to remove it from the agenda, delete it entirely, so there wasn't even an up or down vote on it as of last week, which was not the right move in my mind, given that this is a somewhat serious issue of an expenditure of hundreds of millions of dollars, because that $180 million that gets talked about a lot, it doesn't buy as much as it did back in 2012, at the very least, even before whole pandemic pricings, those lovely pictures of the amount of plywood and lumber you could get before the pandemic versus the amount after, not good. But even then, there has been other costs associated with it, including, of course, those court cases. So that amount of money has diminished both in purchasing power and in absolute size due to all of this. So the question remains, is it going to be anywhere near what is expected, what was envisioned? Because at the very least, it's not exactly in the text, but the way it was portrayed to me at that point in time as an El Paso voter was that the idea was to get a facility that would fill that gap in both venue, performance, sports, other things. I mean, I know sports wasn't explicitly included in it, which has been literally the focus of these own court cases. So I'm not talking about that part, but at the very least, some of the conversation definitely seemed to revolve around it, to my recollection. Point being, it was supposed to fill that gap basically between the Don Haskins Center and the Sun Bowl, because there's a whole lot of space there, including like NCAA playoffs, like quarterfinals or things like that, of that scope and scale, was what was discussed and brought up, at least the discussions I was having back at that point in time, better part of a decade ago, close to a decade ago here, coming up on the anniversary of that anyway, the decade anniversary of it. So will $180 million, or what's left of that $180 million, really get there? So I think that's a good question, particularly if we're bringing this up and saying that explicitly will happen. Is that reasonable? Is that actually going to happen to make this vote go forward? And some advocates have pointed out that this may not even move forward on its own, because being referred to as a poison pill in that agenda item, because, amongst other things, the way the vote actually went about is that the ballot was actually just referring to the construction of a multi-purpose performing arts and entertainment center. But, of course, the contention has always been about, should it be downtown or not? And the whole Duranguito issue, all of that evolution is its own shows, and shows that we have done previously solely on that subject. But that this item then explicitly states that it would be built downtown, as it is on the agenda, being considered somewhat of a poison pill. That the idea of, if you're voting in favor of getting the estimate, you have therefore also affirmed that it has to be downtown, which is a whole, again, another point of contention, literally in lawsuits. So will this actually move forward or not, or is this just another way to then get it on the record, is really the contention that it comes down to. I got to say, I'm personally very much in favor of knowing what actually could we get for our money at this point, of what's left with the money. What would it take to get the facility, as even if it wasn't as explicitly as what was stated on the ballot, as envisioned as what's supposed to be happening? What could we actually get for that realm that we're talking about here? I think it's a good item to consider, but the way that it is crafted does leave questions in my mind of if this is actually going to be able to move forward, this current effort to even get the estimate. Now, I'm not sure how much this is going to cost, but I would actually love it if some real enterprising architectural or public engineering firm, given the scale and scope of this out there, would just say, hey, we're going to do this pro bono to get our name out there. This is how much it's going to cost. Have a nice day. That would be like the ideal solution out there. And no, I don't have the wherewithal to do it myself because I am neither a civil nor a structural engineer, though I'd love to be in this case to be able to just whip out and be like, okay, let's get past this argument. Here's our rough estimate of how it's going to cost. Have a nice day. Move on to the next discussion. But we'll see. Anyway, this is going to be a kerfuffle going on for a while now. So those are two of the kind of major currents going on in our local area. And well, let's just call it the tale of two major governmental efforts, really what's on my mind here for Monday. But we're going to end up taking that break right now. And coming back from the break, we will have those phone lines open to have more of what on y'all's mind as well, particularly as it comes to these local issues. So again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot of stuff to talk about today. A lot of issues going on. Bridge crossings, reopening to those vaccinated crossing. Again, more of those specifics, maybe a little bit more after the break as well. But your calls, comments, all of that with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Take control of your health and stay on top of the latest medical innovations by being sure to tune in every Saturday at noon to the Medical Hackers with Dr. Sandeep Rao. He's a board-certified vascular interventionalist and can help you navigate our complex system with healthcare hacks in the positive sense of the word, in knowing how to work the system and, frankly, just being educated and informed consumer of healthcare, which has been only a minor issue over this last year, right? You can get up on his shows there and also submit your own questions by emailing Rao at medicalhackers.com. That's his last name, RAO, at medicalhackers.com, and get the information you need to be, again, aware and an active and participant in your own health and otherwise. And again, be sure to tune in this coming Saturday at noon right after the El Paso History Radio Show here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Justin Crew with your CBS 4 News Update. The city of El Paso is changing its hours for its COVID-19 testing sites and adding services. It will now offer free testing for both strains of the flu. Now, according to the city, this will allow people to get tested at the same time. They say all the flu and COVID have overlapping symptoms, and this could make it easier for the community to be covered for both. Their hours now run from 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Sunday. You don't need to make an appointment. However, they're also offering the vaccine for children 5 and older. Those are by appointment only. You can find a list of locations on our website, cbs4local.com. Sun Metro is hoping the border reopening will increase ridership. Ellen Smythe is the managing director with the company. She says that they have seen a decline in ridership since 2017 when the pandemic hit. At the bridges closed, it continued to negatively impact them. Smythe says that they will be tracking the data of a potential increase in passengers to see if the border reopening does make a difference. She says each bus has the ability to automatically count every passenger who gets on and off the bus. Smythe wants people to remember that masks are required if you do ride. With your CBS 4 News Update, I'm Justin Cree.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
There's some heavy traffic on Paisano Drive northbound between Boone and Santa Fe Street. Also look out for an accident that could cause delays on Wrestler Drive northbound at Helen of Troy. And there's some construction that has the roadway reduced to 1 lane on Dyer Street both northbound and southbound between Cassidy and Johnson Avenue. I'm Marie Jourdain, and that's traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. Hope you all enjoyed this weekend that just passed. It was beautiful weather, but now we start off our work week with a deck of clouds, which will clear overnight, leaving us with the start of the week looking pretty quiet and dry. Temperature-wise, we are going to have 3 fronts swing through this week, each one helping to bring some cooler air.
This report is sponsored by Friday Health Plans. Friday Health Plans is designed for people who buy their own health insurance with benefits like unlimited $0 primary care and mental health visits in person and online. Friday is insurance you can afford to use. Financial aid available. Get a quote at FridayHealthPlans.com.
If you don't own a home, you have nothing to fear from home title thieves. But if you own a home like me and you don't guard it with Home Title Lock, you're inviting home title fraud, one of the fastest growing crimes. Cyber thieves around the world know our home values are sky high, and that makes us a target. The crime is scary simple. A cyber thief simply forges your name on a property sale form and refiles it. Now he's on the deed to your home, and you have no idea you're a victim. Then he takes out loans on your home and vanishes, leaving you to prove to the police that you didn't commit bank fraud. Home Title Lock puts a virtual barrier around your home's title. The instant they detect tampering, they help shut it down. Look, if you have equity in your home, guard it with your life. Go to HometitleLock.com and register your address to see if you're already a victim. And enter radio for 30 days of free protection. That's code radio at HometitleLock.com.
Be sure to tune in to Talk El Paso Monday through Friday, 4 to 5 p.m. for the biggest stories and latest news affecting the borderland, brought to you in part by Advocate Health Advisors. So join me, Andrew J. Polk, live weekdays at 4 for Talk El Paso on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Panera believes in saying yes to the good things. Yes to mac and cheese. Yes to topping it with cheesy Parmesan crisps. And yes to putting it all on a sandwich. The new grilled mac and cheese sandwich. Get $1 delivery when you order on the app. Panera. Live your yes. Restrictions apply. This report is sponsored by Panera.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the social media pages, including facebook.com/Talk El Paso, Facebook, other pages as well, YouTube, the Talk El Paso page, Twitter, at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, and Andrew J. Polk. Look up either of those names. You'll probably find it on most of these platforms here, because we want to have that conversation out there, as we have a lot of people chiming in right now over a variety of them, including Maria Coleman, John Brazelton, Michael Perez, more others, Calvin Williams, Leroy Chuck, a little bit earlier. A lot of opinions on this, particularly about some of the border crossing issues we're seeing, some more of the related COVID issues, of course, here. So there was some clarification being sent out about what was going on with that, but we'll get into that here a little bit more, because we are taking those calls now through the end of the hour as well. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. More specifically, they're having to do some rumor control as well. So, I mean, it's been 2 years. Everyone else is finally going along with that way I've been thinking about it anyway, that we've been doing this for about 2 years now of those shutdown. Better part, close enough. You can see it from here, that whole 2-year firm anniversary, but ugh. But so, getting to those calls here in just a second. Do, of course, have to mention Talk El Paso, brought to you in part by Monterey Asset Management. If you're tired of the ups and downs of the stock market, consider investing in real estate. Monterey manages apartments in El Paso and helps investors buy, hold, and sell property. Check out their new website, m1ep.com. That's m1ep.com. To learn more about the many benefits and long-term appreciation of investing in real estate, you can call Certified Property Manager Ray Baca at 915-592-4549. That's 915-592-4549. Thank you to our sponsors. Please support them as they support us in our mission to bring live local talk radio back to the borderland, which we're going to keep doing here 4 to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. So, some of the comments, a lot of them focus on some of those issues here. John Brazelton, I got to disagree with the way you're talking about true vaccines, because maybe it's been a bit more. I mean, I haven't had to have some of my particularly grown-up shots here, but, I mean, I've had to have boosters for things like tetanus when I've had exposure over the years after I was in a car crash several years back. Not my fault, but ended up breaking a wrist and having some metal exposure. So, I mean, the whole idea, there are plenty of issues with the way vaccines are situated. No, I don't want to do a whole relitigation of this, but the fact that one jab is then a lifetime of protection kind of isn't really how they work, because there are boosters for most vaccines. I remember taking a lot of them growing up myself here. So to say that it's just one and done and that's what a vaccine is doesn't really square with, well, reality in my mind here. But again, to other topics and points on today, again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Jerome in the Northeast. Jerome, thanks for joining us.
Andrew J., thanks a lot for taking the call and for facilitating this public dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
I got three things. Number one, would still look forward to and hope that you will consider doing something live where we could sit down with a couple of the people who have dialed in opinions over this venue, or we could go eyeball to eyeball, face to face, sit down across the table, maybe have a meal and talk some of these things out. That's number one. Number two, with regard to these hiring consultants outside to tell us how to do something, I was thinking we had sufficient public administration expertise and some solid fiscal managers to be able to avoid committing this sin of always having to go out and ask somebody else what's good for our city. We are looking at this thing for council and this center downtown, and one of the other sins is taking a look at this thing with the school board. If you got Sheffield is in place right now as the acting superintendent, so the expertise is obviously already here. Why are we shopping outside when we have the skill sets and core competencies already right under our nose? So just some food for thought. I'm throwing that out there. I'll turn the mic back over to you for any follow-on comments. Take care. Thanks a lot for taking the call.
No, sure thing. Thank you for those points there. To the first one, have been some conversations on this sense. Stay tuned for other things maybe on that idea of in-person in some scale anyway. But to your larger points about, competencies within the organizations that are doing these major, let's just call it purchasing decisions, because we're either going to be buying services to build an arena or whatever the heck you want to call it, or buying services, like you said, with the school boards that are the two of them that are looking for superintendents right now, that they are buying services in order to facilitate that and then the long-term services of that person who's coming in there. When it comes to the school boards, I have a little bit less of an issue because I'm not saying that there's not a bit of CYA baked into that, but also outside perspective, actual decent choice. I mean, if it then comes down to, well, the person you already had is actually pretty perfect for it, then that's a little bit, what did we hire you all for? Are you not bringing any more value than that to the table? But particularly when it's like public contracts, I'm okay with a little bit more of outside perspective, though, of course, the balance is it worth in the cost that comes down to it that might then result in future taxes coming at you. So it's a reasonable debate to be had, I'll give you there. Now, when it comes to the city side of things, I think you're a bit more nail on the head there, because that was the original item. The way it came up, 2 weeks ago now, within the last month, certainly, about either having internal staff develop these estimates or put it out there. So I think that whole aspect is a major exercise in CYA, and no, I'm not talking about the California Youth Authority when I'm saying that, in order to say that, no, they at least point the finger saying, no, it was these guys that did it, particularly if anything goes wrong. And then what's the whole phrase? A success has many fathers, but failure is an orphan. And then who would they assign the orphan to? Essentially, no, you were the guardian of the orphan in that case, buddy. So I think that's pretty well baked into the thought there. I would, again, not that I expect that anyone locally would, but I would just love it. It would be my perfect, if I was writing this storyline, interjection into this idea of, oh no, we've just had this private organization just up and decide, we're just gonna do it ourselves and save everyone money and move the conversation forward. That would be like my wish fulfillment in this case, amongst many other things. I mean, as wishes go, it might be a pretty lame one, but if it's related to this specific circumstance only, a really specific genie coming up at me, that's what I'd be looking at. But again, taking those calls for the end of the hour, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Raul in the Northeast right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew, I heard you bring up Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. As you know, she's the first woman Speaker of the House. She's a super smart politician, definitely a historic figure in United States politics. I heard her say that she learned how to manage people from having raised 5 children. She's reputed to be a master political strategist and tactician. As you know, she got now they got the Democrats to pass the largest spending infrastructure bill in U.S. history. She crafted and passed Obamacare that Trump did not repeal and replace with Trump Care. Nancy Pelosi impeached Trump 2 times, one of those for inciting an insurrection. And then Trump tried to take her out in his failed coup on the Constitution and Congress and the Capitol. And he didn't do anything for 3 hours to call his mob off. At the very least, he's guilty of dereliction and desertion of duty. And he's continued to have a ton of bad news. Nancy Pelosi told Trump to his face in a meeting in the White House full of big shots and generals, all roads with you lead to Putin. This is all going to come out in time. And too bad there's not anything in the Constitution prohibiting a convicted felon from becoming president of the United States. One can only hope that Trump will be in jail by then. Presidential candidates should be required to release their income taxes at least for 10 years. He said he was going to do it. He never did. They should pledge to put all their assets in a blind trust managed by a third party. And they should be required to take a physical conducted by a military doctor with troubling conditions made public. Thank you.
All right. So just to clarify here, I'm not even going to disagree with you that Nancy Pelosi is an intelligent person, though I definitely have serious issues with how that intelligence is applied. But to your specific contention there about the idea of being a shrewd political operator that then impeached a president twice that essentially failed both times because there was no conviction and upheld. Again, very common, but pervasive and ultimately very annoying to me misconception about the impeachment process. It's not a legal process. Yes, it is set down in law, but it is literally not a court of law. It is literally, and I do mean literally, a political process. So for her to say, well, we have to move forward while knowing it's failing, that kind of refutes the entire idea, to me anyway, of it being a shrewd move when it was, given the demographics of the elected bodies at that point in time when it comes to the party officials represented within it, to say that, oh, no, we're moving full speed ahead into this enterprise we know is going to fail simply for the optics of it. Yeah, that doesn't really work for me on the whole idea of being a shrewd operator here in a variety and amongst many other issues I have with that and plenty of other elected leadership at that level here. Well, in any case, we are going to need to take that break right now. Coming back from the break, absolutely going to keep talking about this and more issues here, particularly the local ones, but we'll get to that, and those phone lines are going to be open. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. It is always a good time to stay on top of your health, and particularly with those screenings that are good year-round, regardless of what month it is. And so in support of that, Therapeutics and Thermography has extended their $50 off benefit for all breast thermograms through the end of the year. That means that you can call and claim your $50 off breast thermograms to 915-401-4053, 915-401-4053. By talking to Therapeutics and Thermography, Inc., locally based company. Find it inside Biometrics at 935 Sunland Park Drive. Thermography is another tool in your arsenal for checking on and maintaining your health, particularly when it comes to breast-related issues. It can help identify, detect, and help you figure out treatment, maybe even faster than some other methods. But again, talk with your doctor and give them a call at 915-401-4053 or visit them online at elpasothermography.com. That's El Paso, TheMography.com.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch out for some heavy traffic on George Dieter Drive northbound between Rojas and Vista del Sol. Also, there's construction that has the roadway reduced to 2 lanes on Gateway Boulevard northbound between Kenworthy and Sean Haggerty Drive. And the on-ramp is closed on the Loop 375 southbound at North Loop Drive. I'm Murray Jourdain, and that's traffic.
This report is sponsored by Dell Technologies.
Now is the time to shop Dell Technologies' biggest sale of the year. Dell Technologies recommends Windows 11 Pro for business. So shop Black Friday early access deals on Windows 11 PCs, servers, storage, monitors, and more. Speak to a Dell Technologies advisor at 877-ASK-DELL.
I'm Baratunde Thurston, host of Force Multiplier, a new podcast about leveling up the impact we can have on the world through our relationships. Whether we're talking about health inequity, nutrition insecurity, or racism, I sit with leaders from across the public, private, and nonprofit worlds who are forging partnerships to take action on some of the toughest challenges facing us today. iHeartRadio is #1 for podcasts, and it's easy to see why. Find Force Multiplier on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey folks, this is Andrew J. Polk. I'm all about local, and El Paso-based Clever Tea is changing how to stay refreshed and focused in the borderland and beyond with a masterfully crafted blend of hand-picked oolong tea infused with crisp pineapple, creamy coconut, and more in every sip with just the right amount of sweetness. Find it in boxes and bottles at the Brown Street Market, CBD Vita, Upper Valley Mercantile, House of Hoops and Muscle Confusion Gym, and Cooking Time. Or order online and find special discounts at clevertea.com. That's KLEVRT.com.
Panera believes in saying yes to the good things. Yes to mac and cheese. Yes to topping it with cheesy Parmesan crisps. And yes to putting it all on a sandwich. The new grilled mac and cheese sandwich. Get $1 delivery when you order on the app. Panera. Live your yes. Restrictions apply.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. A lot of stuff we're talking about here today, and a lot of calls and issues, particularly with that last subject here about some national leadership. Take what we can for the end of the show here. Just to mention real quick, Talk El Paso also brought to you in part by the air conditioning company. We already have some of that cold air coming in. We haven't hit those freezes quite yet, but it's been happening in the region. So avoid all the hassle you have to worry about. Oh, is my air conditioner working? Is it in good working order? And really, am I going to be paying too much for it this season? You can call the air conditioning company at 915-842-8615. and lock in some of the lowest prices of the year and save as much as 25%, both out of your pocketbook and from your peace of mind being eaten away by not knowing the answers to those questions. Because newer systems, they work better, have better efficiency, which is both important for this upcoming season, given all the factors that we constantly talk about with safety and fuel costs, all that. Remove the hassle from your life. 915-842-8615 or log on to airconditioningcompanyllc.com. Thank you to our sponsors. They help us support our mission to bring live local talk radio back to the borderland here. Calvin Williams saying, particularly on the talking about the Speaker of the House, that she enjoys her constitutional freedoms too, plus there are fewer homeless camps to some conversations about retirement and moving to Florida there. Then that some predictions about what will happen in the upcoming elections. We will see, particularly with that national infrastructure bill being passed. Will it be enough? It was also one other thing I forgot to mention with that previous call, that comparing, particularly given the shellacking that National Democrats took after the passage of Obamacare and those midterms, happened to be in D.C. doing reporting at that time myself, and seeing that original Tea Party wave was very, very interesting, and that was the setting happening at that point. So, again, careful what you're wishing for. And history it never really repeats itself, but it rhymes, is what I'm going to say. Trying to get to a couple more calls before the end of the show here. We do have Tony on the west side right now. Tony, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll try to get it all. There's 3 points in 60 seconds, more or less. Number one, Barbara, with all the good stuff that has been happening that you mentioned last week, let me remind you that new Green Deal, that's a horrible, horrible thing. They're going to use, and I have a breakdown that I'll give out later, but they're going to use the majority of that money to rebuild the cities that Antifa burnt. The Democrat-run cities and states that Antifa burnt during Trump. You know how the Antifa and the Democrats, they resort to violence, unlike the Republicans, and they burn things and kill people? Well, that's a lot of the money's going for that. And the unions, of course, they pay back for the campaign contributions. It's a very, very unholy. It should be illegal what they're doing. Anyway, the second point, this fella from the Northeast that spittles and spattles when he calls. This thing about Pelosi, it's not her. Let me defend her. It's not her fault that she looks like a baboon. Okay, what is her fault is that she went in with her salary and now is a multimillionaire, way beyond her salary. You explain that. Always follow the money to find out how corrupt that woman is. Just follow the money and her husband's ties to Chinese businesses and banks and ships and shipping and stuff like that, and you'll find out how corrupt that lady is. And number three, I want to thank you, Andrew. You're a class act. There is Root International. Art will be coming on your show pretty soon, I hope, to explain to Christian people who are listening to me. Listen to me one more time. You have one son who was born in the garage and one son who was born in the house. Now, they're both your sons, okay? And the one in the garage needs a lot more help than the one in the house. So you have to give your charity to the one in the garage because they're both your brothers, and it's not his fault he was born in the garage. Those are the Mexican Christians who need help this Christmas. Thank you, Andrew, for your time.
Yeah, sure thing. Again, a lot of talk about charity and giving in this point in the season as we get closer to the season of giving and the season of thanks and all of that. So doing charity wherever it works best for you is absolutely important, and happy to talk more about those as we get a little bit closer to it. So thanks for that point here. Then we got time for another quick call here. We do have Barbara on the west side. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for taking my call, Andrew. I'd just like to comment on the mass that they had this weekend for the 557 migrants that they found that were dead, that Bishop Seitz and Fernando Garcia from Border Network for Human Rights attended. And Garcia indicated how infuriated he was. First, he said he was heartbroken. Well, we all are. But he's infuriated with the Biden administration for letting this happen, for continuing some of the Trump policies. And what is so amazing is that he advocates for this. He advocates for open borders without border patrol, without law enforcement. What can a person expect when you have no law and no order at the border? Exactly what's happening. And then there was a gentleman, David Lapan, L-A-P-A-N, who made a comment, and he said, and he was a former spokesman for the DHS. He indicated that the Trump administration was more about sending a message about enforcement than caring for children. And the biggest difference between the two administrations is that Biden is more interested in the inhumane conditions at the border. Well, this is an indicator of how what Biden is doing is not working. And though Trump's policies seemed harsh, they actually saved lives. Under President Trump, we never heard of 12,000 children being lost in the system. We never heard about children arriving at our borders who couldn't speak because they were raped so many times coming down on the journey. We've never heard about the riots that we had at Fort Bliss, or the suicidal thoughts, or the starvation of the kids, or the horrible conditions they were in, or the quarantine within a quarantine basis, or that security had to monitor the facilities. And people like Fernando are enabling the cartels. They're becoming billionaires. They're trafficking more and more in minors. And this lie from the administration, coming to the United States, we have sufficient home for you, is not true, because that's why they're flying people all over the United States in the dead of night, because they don't have sponsors. They don't know where some of these illegal immigrants are going to. So the hundreds of deaths that they encountered across the border are because Biden does not have policies in place that save people's lives, as far as Panama, as far as the Darien Swamp, where they're building trenches and putting body bags of humans and children because they're dying. That's the difference between the Trump policies and the Biden policies. What does it say? Spare the rod, spoil the child. Well, we're sparing the law and we're killing people all over the world. So I would not advocate, as Fernando and let's not forget, Escobar, our representative, advocates, and she's right in line with what Fernando is doing. They keep saying this Ellis Island. Please, somebody tell us where the similarities are. There is no similarities between Ellis Island on the border and the true Ellis Island. There was order. There were medical exams. There were archives kept. Over here, we don't know where people are going, who they are. Just look at that kid that crossed the border last week. He came in with a group of children, said he was children. Turns out he was 23. What do? They fly him at night to Florida. What does he do? He kills a father. That's why we need law and order. And MPP was not meant to crucify people or make it harsher on people. It was to bring law and order. They should have kept the policies in place and worked on more policies. If they didn't want those policies, work on new policies that they felt were more humane.
I mean, I got to agree with you on that last point. I would love to see a new policy coming out of this administration. We've talked about that for a minute now because it just keeps doing repudiation or ordered return to previous administration policies. It's gotten tiresome at best, and we keep seeing the impacts in our area here. The federal government is not good in any administration under the business of taking care of this amount of people here. So a different solution is very, very clearly needed. We got to leave it there for today because we're out of time here for this show. Thank you to everyone who did call in, comment, participate in the show. We'll be back tomorrow, 4 to 5 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Talk more about this. So thank you everyone who did tune in, call in, comment, participate in any way. We'll make the show great. We're back tomorrow. Stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles. Have a great evening, y'all. Time for another Medicare Moment with Eric with Advocate Health Advisors. Can veterans enroll anytime throughout the year to get into these options we've talked about?
Under certain circumstances, yes, they can. A veteran may change their Medicare plan anytime throughout the year. This may also apply to a veteran's spouse. What we do is we receive many hours of training on exactly how to use the special enrollment period to make this available to veterans and their spouses if available.
So for more info on those details and much more, call Eric, your local advisor, wherever you're hearing this broadcast at 1-800-876-0214. That's 1-800-876-0214.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch out for some heavy traffic on George Dieter Drive northbound between Rojas and Vista del Sol. Also, there's construction that has the roadway reduced to 2 lanes on Gateway Boulevard northbound between Kenworthy and Sean Haggerty Drive. And the on-ramp is closed on the Loop 375 southbound at North Loop Drive. I'm Murray Jourdain, and that's traffic.
Hey folks, this is Andrew J. Polk. As the days get shorter, you don't want to get caught in the spooky situation of not knowing where to go to get quality medical care and services when you need it. From the routine to minor medical emergencies, my go-to is Dr. Alan Carpenter and his team at Upper Valley Urgent Care Center. From shots and testing to aches, sprains, breaks, and the rest of the unplanned parts of your day, they're at the ready with walk-ins accepted 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week at 120